All right, we're live. This is Joshua Kemble's live stream. I'm Joshua Kemble. I'm an illustrator, graphic designer, full-time art director. I've been doing professional art and illustration and graphic design for over 15 years, and I've been an art director for about 6. And when I'm not art directing or doing graphic design or just being a dad and all that fun stuff, I also do cartooning, and I work on my graphic novels. My first published graphic novel came out a couple months ago. It's called Two Stories, and it's a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. It's a very personal story, very indie style comic. The pages are all hand lettered and hand inked, and yeah, it's written and illustrated by me, and that's what the final pages kind of look like. A little snippet. I know you're looking in the corner at that. What you're looking at on the main screen over here is what I'm going to be working on tonight, which is, so you'll notice looking at the cover of this that it's actually book 1, and so right now what I'm working on is trying to get book 2 completed of the story, because it's basically 2 stories. It's told in 2 styles, and it's going to be told in 2 volumes. So there's a lot of 2s throughout the entire thing. So anyhow, what I've been working on is the second book. The first one was about 122 pages and took me about 5 years to execute. That's not 5 years just solely working on that. That's 5 years on top of my day job, where I work as an art director and professional illustration and all that fun stuff that consumes so much time for people who do art for a living. So anyhow, this second book I'm hoping to get done a lot quicker than that. And so what I'm doing is kind of combining the thumbnailing stage, which is the stage I do in comics right after scripting. So I have a script written out for the second book. It's already been edited and kind of looked over. And now what I'm doing is breaking down the script into thumbnail format. And I'm doing tighter thumbnails than I usually would. I'm trying to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, doing thumbnails and roughs, more worked out kind of compositions that allow me to have a better idea of what the type is going to look like, what the compositions, the lighting, and just a lot of the panel layout and how I want it to kind of flow as a story. So I've been doing that. I'm on page 105 of that. After that step, what I'll do is take it in Adobe Illustrator. I'll work out all my panel borders and my type, and probably gather a lot of reference, and shoot a crap load of reference. So it's going to be interesting. I don't even know if I'll live stream during that point of it when I'm photographing photo reference, although maybe I'll do a little live stream of doing the process of shooting photos, although that might be really embarrassing because a lot of it's friends and family just holding really weird poses. But anyhow, so that's pretty much what I'm working on as we speak. And tonight what I'm going to be working on is thumbnailing page 105, which is during chapter 10. This is an 11 chapter book. I have gotten through the first page of chapter 10. And yeah, I don't even want to look at how many pages I have left. I don't think I actually have that many pages left. I've burnt through and worked through quite a lot of the script. So I would say I'm definitely over halfway there. This is the amount that I have completed. And then this right here, this much smaller stack, is what I have left. What I do when I'm taking notes and kind of translating from a script to the final page is I take a lot of little notes and underlines just to kind of keep track of where I'm at on the script. So right now I'm like right here at this very bottom part, and that's what I'll be working on tonight. So this is a stream where I do that, and anybody who's been following along so far, you don't need to know the spiel, but I like to do that at the beginning just to let people know. Oh, I should also mention that book, Two Stories, the first volume. If you want to support indie comics and read, I think, a pretty moving memoir that deals heavily with the topic of like mental illness and childhood disappointments, and somewhat about like childhood obsession with like the 1980s and nostalgia, juxtaposed with like adult struggles with mental illness and suicidal ideation and stuff like that. Please pick up this book. You can get it through Amazon.com. And by supporting an indie, it goes a really long way. You'd be surprised how much just like one order really moves the needle in the sense of like the sales rank and stuff. And in the game of indie publishing and indie books, like that's what you're trying to do, is kind of rig the algorithm. So I don't need to explain that to you, but I just thought that would be worth mentioning. And I do think the book, I think if you buy it, you won't regret it. Like most people I know who've read the book, I really enjoyed it. From people that know me to people who don't, I've just heard a ton of really good feedback on it. But once again, judge for yourself. And and then if you have bought the book, please leave like a review on Amazon. I know it's weird. We're in a world where, especially if you liked it, even if you didn't, but like we're in a world where it's really easy for us to, like, when something we really dislike, to just kind of rant about it and rave about it and like give negative reviews, but we rarely, myself included, like take the time to give good reviews to books we really think deserve the light of day. And in the book sales world, like that's a hard it's a hard market. So it's worthwhile, like for this book or any book you've read that you enjoyed, like to leave a good review actually like physically helps the book sell to other people. Rambling for 7 minutes. Okay. Tonight I'm not going to get like heavy into crazy topics or anything like that unless something comes to mind. What I'm mostly going to do is just focus on getting this next page laid out. What you're also seeing on the screen over here is I'm still getting used to like the direction. Like this is the side of the screen, but in my head, like it should be here because that's what I'm seeing. But anyhow, the point being, over here, you're going to notice the last page that I finished on the last stream, which I think was stream 32, where I worked out the last page 104. So what I'll probably do now is kind of break this into 3 sections so I can reference very easily. I'm working off of a pretty basic 9-panel grid, which I actually recommend for cartoonists to kind of limit themselves on a grid of what they kind of are working with for page layout, and then kind of move from the grid from there. But anyhow, so there's my 9-panel grid. I should also mention I'm also doing the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge, which is where you spend 30 minutes a day minimum working on your own personal comic project. And the idea being, and then hold yourself publicly accountable to it by either documenting it on a blog or on a vlog or a video or like a social media post, however you want to do it. This is probably, I think, my 3rd time doing the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge. It's something my friend Kevin Cross started, and it can be really productive for kind of kickstarting your comics. I tend to spend like way over like an hour, probably more usually on a daily basis working on these things, but it's not bad, especially if you're stuck in a rut and you're looking for time like on top of the day job or something like that to make comics. to use this challenge. It was something my friend Kevin Cross started when he was finding himself like having trouble finding time to make these things we want to make, and realizing like it's never going to make itself. So you just kind of have to carve out the time. So anyhow, so I'm participating in that. And it's day, I don't know, 28 plus 31 is 59. 60, wait, what? 28 plus 31. Is that right? 59, so 60. So I'm on day, I think I'm on to like day 61 of the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge. I'm going to write that down too so I don't like lose track. The thing that you'll notice when you do the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge is you start losing track of days very quickly when you're like right at the midpoint. So I started it around the same time as my friend Scott Cirkland, and he's been posting really cool stuff on his channel. And actually, if you like prints and like my art and illustration, that's on joshuakemble.com. I did a limited edition poster art for Scott, and so he is selling those on his website, and you can probably pick up a print of that for his comic Young and the Dead. It's like his comic done in my style on these really I think really nice posters. Like the quality looks really good. So yeah, so that's all of that stuff out of the way. And hopefully I can boil that kind of intro down a little shorter. But let's get into it now. So I'm going to work on my comic. Oh, and being that it's a Monday, I usually probably wouldn't be having a drink like this late at night, except that I have tomorrow. I took tomorrow off. I took some vacation time to get the day off work tomorrow because I'm going to be on a show called the Comic Book Club, which I'm pretty excited about. It's actually a pretty good show. It should be good. It goes live. I think it'll be about 4 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're on my side of the coast in the U.S., then that's when you can check it out. Okay, all that's out of the way, but that's tomorrow at like 4 o'clock. And tonight, what I want to do is try to get this taken care of. We also earlier today did the Indie Review Show, which you can check out. You can actually like literally just search in YouTube Indie Review Show, and that'll show you the channel Indie Review Show, which you should subscribe to, because that's where Corey Kerr, sometimes Scott Cirkland, and then myself, Corey Kerr, and I are like the main hosts of it. Are going to be posting a weekly review of a different comic book, alternating between us. Like each week, one of us picks a comic that really inspired us or influenced our work, and then we kind of analyze it, break it down, and then talk at the end about like certain things we can pull from it or that have inspired our own work. Okay, so check that out. But we did a really pretty good one about Lady Killer by Joelle Jones, and that you can check out. Also on that, the main site for that is just irsagency.com, and that should kind of get you there. So that's what I did tonight, and then basically I took a break, had lunch, very late lunch, more like a late second dinner, and then now I'm getting into working on my own comic work, which should be pretty exciting. So let's get into it. And I am drinking a Double Down Forge On Double IPA Bartow. This is actually a very well-known Bartow in the area of California that I live in, from Bravery Brewing, and it's delicious. And it's not sponsored or anything like that, but if you want, a kickback drink and you're in the LA area, it's a pretty good brewery. So okay, here we go. So we're at this weird point where we're breaking down a point in a story where it's talking about pretty hardcore atheism that I used to subscribe to philosophically. And then we're getting into a part of the story that kind of gets into why I changed my mind and kind of gained faith. And this is not the sole purpose of the entire book, but it is definitely a very large part and definitely like the conclusion of the 2-part story. And we're getting into it. So that's pretty exciting. So let's get into it. Here we go. So this last one was this: I was alone in Portland and living solo was bringing up old fears. All right, here we go. So we're going to make a new panel and get moving on comping out the next page. My hope is to kind of cap this at about an hour to 2 hours. I'm hoping to not have like a 10-hour podcast, 10-hour stream. I think yesterday we went over 5 hours on our stream, although it was a fun stream and a really cool conversation. My buddy Corey Kerr joined me for it, and I think both of us did not intend to be working that long that night, but we got a lot done. All right, so here we go. And this is going to be a part that says, in the script. Okay, I'm going to write out the script here. I found myself. So this is going to be interesting because I'm actually mentioning locks on doors, and I need to check the first issue, which is where I showed the interior of the front door of this apartment that this takes place in, just to make sure I'm using the same locks and the same kind of door. This is the interesting thing about working sequentially is like, especially it's like when you're like 100 and something pages away from the last time you showed a door, like a specific door, to like have to go back and be like, what did that door look like? Okay. So here we go. And this is talking about kind of an impending paranoia. At this point in the story, the main character has been through a violent crime, like he's been a victim of violent crime, and then he's been accosted by a neighbor and who pretty much does like a kidnapping and narrowly escapes with his life. So he and his wife, he and his fiance like moved to Portland in hopes of like a better life. Everything falls apart in Portland. He ends up kind of stuck in Portland on his own, and now he is starting to have some serious doubts about his faith in humanity and his belief in atheism. And there we go. So that's where we're at. And let's see if I can find that older. It's always awkward talking about autobio stories, though, because on one hand, like drafting them and creating them, you do start to feel like a character. Like it feels like you're writing about a distant character who isn't you, but at the same time, it is you, and it is experiences you went through. So, and like if you're writing it like I do, you're trying to make it like as authentic and true to those experiences as possible. So it's this weird thing where it's like I have to talk about the plot. How's it going, Ronnie? Ronnie Gunter in the chats. How you doing, man? How is the comic coming? I saw a little bit of you having let's see, I think Gary, like on your YouTube channel, was a pretty interesting thing. If that wasn't you, then I feel bad, but I'm pretty sure it was. It was a cool conversation. And Gary's rad. He was on Artcasters too, and he's just like such a talented dude that it's cool. It's cool to hear conversations. about that kind of stuff. How is your comic coming along, Ronnie? Let's see here. I'm looking for the first time that I might have shown the inside door of an apartment in the first one. Yeah, you guys talked about jump scares and like why like psychologically like people are drawn to it and stuff. It was really a fascinating conversation. It was cool. Um, so I think I watched about half of it, and I'm going to try to watch the other half before I crash tonight. And there it is. I knew it. I knew it. I knew there was a scene. Is that the inside or the outside of the door this is showing? Okay, that's the outside, but it'll still give an indication for the inside. So I'm going to pull that up. Hold on. I want to at least pull it up so you guys know what I'm talking about here. All right, this is page 14. So this is zooming back like 100 and, well, at this point, like 200 pages into the story. But we have this, and this is just the JPEG. I don't need the final printed art, just to kind of make sure I'm being consistent. So there is the door on the outside. I'm not sure if I showed it from the inside. So, but I do want to make sure I'm being sequentially consistent and not having like a door that has a certain layout and then suddenly the layout changes. I try to avoid that as much as possible. Although honestly, there's times where sometimes it's just unavoidable. Okay. So there's one of the door. Now I'm going to see if there are any other instances where there's a door that I might need to pull for this scene. Let's see here. Yeah, you're welcome, man. It was definitely entertaining. Thanks for having Gary on. Like, he's a good guest to have. Gary Hodges does a comic called oh my goodness. I have it right here. Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, and it's 1975, and then the other one's 1992, and they're really good comics. They're really well written. They have like wonderful pacing. Yeah. And then Ronnie is working on an interesting, kind of cool horror story that seems to be bouncing back and forth from two different eras in time. And he's shown us a lot of stuff, little sneak peeks of it on this very stream. I hope it's going well with that, with the creation of it. All right, so here we go. We're getting into. I'm just perusing real quick the last book just to make sure there aren't other sequences where I'm showing the interior. Because my biggest fear is like, let's say I show the interior of the apartment and it has like a deadbolt, and then there's one that doesn't. You know what I mean? That like I know like most people aren't really gonna notice that, but that's the kind of like sequential thing I want to pay attention to. I think we're good. I think that's the only shot. Yes, that is the only shot. Okay, cool. So I am fortunate that this is the only shot, so it hasn't actually shown the interior. I do know the door is going to be on the left, and I want it to be somebody triple checking locks. So let's see here. How can I show that? Should be overhead? No. Roughly, how many pages are in the second book? Roughly, it's going to be about 124 pages, give or take 4. The problem is if it goes to 125, I'm going to have to make it 128, because you have to do these things in signatures of 4. So I do have to work it out a little, like when I'm doing the next phase after these roughs where I like actually include like the chapter breaks, because I haven't been including those pages on this. So technically, let me see. Can work that out real quick where we're at so far. Okay, so this book starts with chapter 6. Like the first book is the first 5 chapters. This book starts with chapter 6, so that's chapter 6. There's a title page, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, and then chapter 10 and 11. So we're at 5, 6, 7, and then 7 plus 5 would be 112. So technically at this point, theoretically, like we'd actually have like 112 roughs done. I'm actually writing that down so I can keep that sequence. So let's say it ends up capping at 124 pages. Great, cool. If it goes beyond that, it's going to have to be 128 or 132 or whatever that is, whatever that magic number is. I also haven't worked out whether I'm going to be including kind of full spread pages that are just kind of like almost like pseudo covers on the inside. So it's probably going to be a little bit longer than the first book, but not much. Yeah, but it's nuts. It's going to be interesting to try to chew the final of, but it's, it's kind of, it's a story I think has to be told. So I want to commit to it and make it happen, and make it happen quicker than the last one. It might not, though. That's a good question, though. But yeah, I think on a pricing note, it doesn't make a mass difference if there's like 10 or 12 extra pages once you get into those kind of signatures. Hopefully. For printing. Luckily, it's a black and white book, so the interiors are, I think, for the publisher, like probably don't cost as much to run as like a 4-color process, offset print or something. Okay, so I found myself triple checking the locks on the doors. Okay, so I'm trying to kind of get this worked out, and I think, actually, what if it were like a lower shot, where it's kind of like almost like a figure, and they're sort of kind of making like a desperate sort of move to the locks. All right. We're going to do the polar opposite of this one. These are pretty low things, so I know that like my character's posture is going to be a little bit more bent. And then I do like the idea of tilting the angle. So what I will probably do, okay, it's going to be on the left side of the door. This is on the right. And this will have like a chain, as any good apartment has, What is an apartment without that classic chain? Okay. Here we go. And now we're going to just block this out. So it's going to be sort of paranoid checking of the chain. Yes. Okay. So we start with the hands here because I think that's important. And once again, these are thumbnails, so I'm not going to like put the level of detail or finish that I would on final pages, which Ronnie, you know. How are you doing, man? Are you prepping for work? Heading to work? I know we have a pretty wild time difference. Not like that wild, but all right. So I do think that gets across the point. Maybe it can actually have like the hand thumb out like this. Those look like fairly desperate hands. All right. So here we go. And what? Okay. That's good. Okay. So we're going to work out this desperation. I tend to like be a little more cartoony with my my thumbnails too, because my point is to like try to have like a clear idea of what expression I'm going to do. So it's like if you're too subtle, like I'm trying to show like this is double checking the locks, super paranoid. It's like if you don't exaggerate in the thumbnails and the roughs, it's like you're probably in for a hard time, you know. Adam, dude, Adam Lohr is joining us in the chats. Adam is a really talented cartoonist. Last I talked to Adam, he was working on a series of like really cool rubber hose style comics that were done in this really cool style where it was like using transparencies with like ink over it, and then over those transparencies, like under the transparency, like doing watercolor washes, and it was a really cool kind of fascinating style. How are you doing, Adam? Let's see here. All right, so I think that'll give us like a rough idea of how to do this section, and then I want to tilt it a little bit and skew it, because like once again, I think a flat view like that is just a little boring. You know, it can be boring for people, so I want to always kind of skew the lens or like the viewpoint a little bit, tilt it a little bit to make it work. Because I feel like sometimes we get stuck. At least I know if I don't do that, like you'll notice even when I was sketching it, it's like I get locked into drawing things at like a 45-degree angle, and I'll forget to like tilt stuff. So like one of the advantages of doing thumbs and like roughs, these are like a thumbnail rough hybrid. Whoa, my Wacom kind of wigs out sometimes though. But anyhow, one of the nice things about that is it creates like, and I want to use sweat bullets too, because sweat bullets are one of those underserved things. Like I always feel like that's one of those things that I don't see often in comics, and it bums me out that they don't exist in comics as often as they should. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm spending more time on them than I probably should, but the thinking is that the last process took me about 5 years. And so my thought is actually to put more in the previs stage, so that like at the end, in the post stage, like it'll take less time and be a little easier to work out like what the final sequences are going to look like, because I'll have a clearer kind of storyboard for my for my final. I don't know if that makes sense. It might be crazy and it may not work, but I do think in the long run it's going to save me a lot of time. The other thing that I did last time that I'm doing a little differently this time is last time I tried to do these like each thing at a time. So like I would do like thumbnails and roughs for like one single page, and then I'd go from that to layout for that page and type, and then I'd do like photo references and get those taken and shot, and then I would go into penciling, and then I would go into inking, and then I'd go on to page 2. And that method was like breaking everything into a bunch of steps where it's like it was fulfilling because you get to see the pages earlier. Because like right now, even like I really want to see some of these finished, but I think it might have slowed down the process. In theory, I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so that's panel 1. We got that worked out. So that's triple checking the locks on the doors. And then we're going to get into the next section. What are you up to lately, Adam? Like you working on anything cool? Ronnie, who's in the chats, is working on like a horror comic that's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. He's shown a few of the pages and stuff. I'm always kind of curious what everyone's working on, but yeah, let me know. Yeah, Adam, like that might be a bad thing. It might be a good thing. I don't know. I'm hoping I'm not putting too much in. Let's see here. Okay. So here we go. And this is going to be the next section where it's going to say, I was constantly thinking about death. A very fun part of this story. Nice. Yeah. That's good though. I think it's good to like practice drawing. I might actually, whenever I'm done with this, like do some kind of exercise or drawing studies, or potentially I've even thought about just like whenever I'm done with the second book, maybe I'll spend like a month or 2 just painting or doing something outside of comics for a little bit. I say that now. I might do more comics, but it's pretty draining to make these things. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I do think doing drawing exercises, tightening that muscle, like getting used to it, or getting like improving or growing on like in a certain area, like I think it's always well worth it. And I kind of wouldn't mind having the doing the same thing after this is done. I might. So but I do feel like I haven't really had a ton of time to like do life drawing in a long time, and I love life drawing. And it's like I haven't been able to do that because I've been working on this every free moment. So I think that sounds awesome. That's my long-winded way of saying that sounds awesome. I think for this, I want to have it be a little different. I like because I think the on the nose shot for that statement would be like somebody looking really sad. Um, hmm. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Adam. Yeah, dude, that sucks. Like to go through health issues that you got to recover from, and like just getting physically and mentally like back. That can be really tough, man. Honestly, sometimes like even in scenarios like that, just making the step of like getting out of bed, like doing anything, is kind of a victory in its on its own right, you know. Um, yeah, but I'm glad you're drawing, man, and I'm glad you're out of the hospital. That's rough. Let's see here. So I think I'm gonna have. I'm trying to see if there's like a couch. What did I have on the inside of the first book? Again, I got to thumb through it. I know that doesn't make for the most exciting uh, stuff for you guys, like when I'm having to like thumb through previous panels of a book that you can't see. You can just basically see flash. I'm gonna have to fix that in OBS at some point. And so when I do have to like reference the older comic pages, I can kind of show you guys. Let me see if I can do that actually. But yeah, we're glad to have you back, Adam. It's cool to talk to you. Adam's been a guest on Artcasters before, which is a show I do with Scott Cirkland every Thursday. I think this week we're doing it on Wednesday, which is a switch. Um, but anyhow, yeah, Adam's been on there, and you can look that up. And I think by just if you just look for Adam Lore on YouTube and Artcasters, and you can see some of his work. He's a talented dude. Okay, so there was like a little bit of environment, but I think it's open enough. Okay, cool. Because basically, what I'm thinking is, I'm actually thinking about having somebody just drinking coffee in this panel. Because I want this to be kind of a depiction of like, sort of like what lingering um, thoughts are like, you know, where it's like if you have like lingering thoughts, they just kind of pop up randomly. They don't tend to always be like situational. So, maybe the head is facing down. That would be good. Okay. So it's pretty interesting, like trying to work out some of these sequences where it's like more of like an emotional truth kind of conversation in paneling is harder to do. It's a little challenging for me because the temptation for me is like to put it right on the nose and make it super obvious when it's not always like the case. Or could it be that like the coffee's here and have the figure kind of here? No. Okay, so looking down is good. Okay. I think I figured it out and worked it out. Probably spent a little too much time thinking about that. This is why my thumbnails are taking 10 years to do. But I'm trying to knock out like a page of these a night. And then we'll just kind of see where that goes. But so far it's been happening, but I am feeling it's funny because I've been doing this for like 31 streams. And then before that, I don't know what page I was on when I started those streams, probably about 31 pages or 30-ish pages behind where I am now. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. And one thing I have noticed is like, I think it's like right when I hit the 100th where I was just like, oh, like, and like the lack of sleep does catch up with you a little bit. So I'm trying to kind of find that balance where I'm not like risking my sleep or my own like health, my own physical health to like get this thing done. And at the same time also make the time to do it so that it does get done. It's a weird juggling act, this whole thing. But I'm trying. Totally rambling. Yeah, so I do want like this to be more. I don't like this mouth because that mouth looked. Okay. All right, so we're just gonna get some hair worked out here. So Adam, like what time is it where you're at right now? For me, it's about 12:45. So it's getting close to like the 1 o'clock time frame. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I always forget. I always forget that Washington. It's funny because I used to live in Portland, so I should know better. But I always forget that Washington's in the same time zone because we're all on the Pacific coast. Dude, have a good one, Ronnie. Have a good day at work, man. How is Washington right now? Is it snowy right now? I think I have a few friends who live in Gig Harbor and had some snow, but I haven't checked in with them in a little bit, so I'm not sure where it's at right now. Is it crazy crazy weather up there? Okay, so let's see here. I actually want this to be. Actually, I don't like this arm. I like the idea of it being kind of like. Okay, so there's going to be a cup of coffee here. I want like. Weirdly, I want like a finger in the coffee. Because I just think that's such a weird thing to do, to have a finger in the coffee. I know this hand is like also a little tiny. Let's see here. Warmed up recently, like spring, but it was like a blizzard a couple weeks ago. Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's good that it's warming up, but it's yeah, that blizzard kind of stuff can just get rough. But I do. It's funny. There's a lot of things I miss about the Northwest, though. It's very beautiful, especially in times like after a blizzard, like come like May, April. Like that's gonna be gorgeous, you know. That also doesn't work. He's now got a disembodied arm, like his shoulder has been dislocated in this picture. Okay, I'm gonna move the shoulder down. There we go. That's a little better. Proportionally, like that makes a little more sense to the body. Okay. It's funny. Okay, here we go. Move this. I think I'm gonna shrink him too a little bit. Probably being a little too precious with this this panel, but it is something I think will save time. That's going to be kind of like my mantra while working on this. I think. Frank, how you doing, man? Frank's joined us in the chats. Frank, we got Adam in the chats. Really talented cartoonist, Adam Lohr. We have Frank Salazar in the chats of Tarako Cast, which actually had a really cool interview with me on their cast. And we talked about mental illness in comics, and it was a really good conversation. Let's see here. How are you doing, Frank? How are things looking in Texas right now? All right, so again, I don't know what's going on with my head and proportions today, but I'm drawing giant coffee mugs or I'm drawing like dislocated arms. Definitely not the most on drawing day. Okay, here we go. One of the things I love about being able to like sketch this stuff out digitally is like the ability to, especially when you're doing thumbnails and stuff, it's like you can kind of work out some of those issues that would be like major issues if I like had that on like a bristle page and I had to make that correction that I just did. And luckily, if I can like work that kind of nonsense out before I get it to the page, that'll be good. Not really sure what that shirt's going to be yet, so I'm just leaving it. Sometimes I have like a really clear idea of what I want it to be, and sometimes I do not. This is going to be at the kitchen counter. Actually, I was going to have it on a couch, but then I was remembering back in this apartment we had like those tall stools with like a kitchen counter. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to have, because we have a dog that is food obsessed, I'm like, he would be right here. It's like, what? This is a very crappy quick sketch of our pug. He would be like right here on the floor just begging. If you guys ever met our dog that is in this comic, he is like the most food obsessed dog I've ever seen in my life. If there is food or even a semblance of food, he's like right there, ready to find a way to get to the food. So that fits his character. Okay, have a little fireplace. This is where the thumbnail really does start looking like a thumbnail, because it's like, okay, there's a fireplace. Okay, and then that's going to kind of go over to here where I think we had, okay, spread this, and then there's like a sliding door, some like wood flourish looking thing. My perspective is all over the place. I'm just kind of cheating and doing a like an isometric kind of look. And let's have just a little bit of okay. Put a little tone on there just to get an idea of what nice. Sketching masked woman for a possible design. Nice. Cold again and hopefully not a storm. Yeah, I hope not, man. Yeah, I hope they get that worked out. Like, I don't know, figure out what was causing the outages and stuff down there. Like I said, coming from California, it's hard to judge because we have a lot of weird weather things happen up here, fires, all kinds of interesting stuff. So still, it'd be good if they got it worked out for you guys. Let's see here. Getting this going. We're almost at the first hour mark. I can't believe that. That's pretty exciting. So an hour has gone by. I do like the idea of this sort of having. So the reason I wanted like the coffee mug is I think the next shot could actually be like an overhead shot of the hand. Okay. And because it's like a counter and it probably gets used, maybe there's like a magazine or a comic sitting there just so it doesn't feel like kind of out of place. And then see how this will go. Okay, so that's 2 down. 2 down. Okay. And mark where I'm at on that on my script. Mama Soto is joining us in the chats. Yeah, it is pretty late. For me, I may not even be going that late tonight because we already did the indie review show on Corey Kerr's channel, and I think the only reason why I felt like okay I can power through and do my comic is I literally have tomorrow as a vacation day. Because there's a podcast that wants me. It's like a YouTube show, interview show, podcast that wants me to talk about 2 stories on it at 4:00. They're like a New York show, and they're a pretty big show. Not like huge, but like a fairly big enough show to where like I didn't feel bad like requesting a vacation day to have that time to promote my book. So. And then also the plus side is I get tomorrow off. So pretty excited about that. So that's part of why I'm also comfortable being up late and also drinking IPA, which I just cracked open because I was like, hey, tomorrow's a vacation day. So anyhow, I figured what better way to spend the day before a day off, which I'll probably spend most of the day working. Working. That's what I do. Okay, so here we go, and we are at the hour mark, and as usual. So it's a show called Comic Book Club, and I like them a lot. They have like a YouTube channel, and then I think they run it as a podcast as well. And I'm pretty sure they're kind of like affiliated with like Nerdist Industries. So like I said, it's not like it's not like the New York Times or something, but it's a show I like, and they've had some really heavy hitter cartoonists that I like on it, and I like the show, so it'll be fun. Yeah. Wow. So that answered you, Adam, I think. But yeah, so that's gonna run at 4 p.m. Pacific, and it's live. So hopefully I don't botch it. Like, hopefully I don't go on there and go like, it's a weird thing to try to pitch on a show like that because it's an autobio comic that talks about like mental illness and like slice of life stuff, and so like pitching that on a show that generally has like people who like the artist who worked on The Boys and stuff, like it's like I don't know, it's a hard book for me. I struggled pitching a book like two stories in like one line, and so I'm hoping I can kind of condense my words and be well spoken and present effectively like what the book is, but we'll see. And Mama Soto, you're right. Vacation days are always good. Wednesday, 31st anniversary. Congrats. Ay caramba. That's awesome. That is lovely. Okay. So we're at the hour mark. Anytime I'm doing these streams, when I get to about an hour, just to keep my brain and stuff. Oh, thanks, Adam. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, the childhood parts are parts I definitely should mention when I always kind of forget to mention that second style. And I should definitely mention the two styles. And yeah, that's a really good point. I will try to remember to highlight that. There's also a lot of nostalgia too, so I like it, and I'm glad you loved it. And thank you, Mama Soto. Thank you. I'm glad you liked two stories. Yeah, I can't wait to get the second one done. I'm close, and I'm excited about this section too, because this is like I've built this whole story arc, and it's gone through this whole narrative, and now it's like finally close to the conclusion, like the big resolution. Okay, here it is. That's what I wanted, and I'm also trying to do all these mirror. Thank you, Frank. I like the too good. I love it. I should have Frank pitch it. I feel like Frank, you are like the ultimate pitch man. You're very good at pitching. And I think that would be cool. All right, so let's see here. Okay, what was this? There's one thing I was trying to find. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I want to do these little reflections that kind of start referencing the original book, like the first one, because we're kind of starting to bookend the end. And so there's a sequence where it's showing like this swirling water, and I'm actually going to reflect that in this panel, but very subtly, but I need to pull it up to look at it. Okay. So I need to grab this bottom right panel. And then that is literally going to be the coffee mug. Now this makes a little more sense. Yeah, Frank did a really, really nice, very kind review of Two Stories and put it on his channel, and it's much appreciated. Did I have this off center this whole time? Okay, thank goodness. I was so worried for a second. Ooh, I did have it slightly off center. Okay. I think there's like a setting that I need to fix on my. Oh, no, I did not want to see that either. Okay. There's a setting I need to fix on my, on my tablet that I think is like a shortcut to the rotation tool, and I forget about it, and then something weird like that happens where all of my paneling is all off. So okay, there we go. That shouldn't happen again. Fun one. Okay, so this one I'm about to take like my 20-second break that I make at the hour mark. But for this one, it's going to be basically a close-up of this, of the coffee mug from like overhead, and then you're going to see this swirly bits in the coffee mug, and then some type. But like once again, these little subtle callbacks to like the early part of the book that I'm going to be trying to pull. Okay, I'll be right back in like 20 seconds ish. So don't go anywhere. I'll see you guys in a few. Okay. All right, back to it. Thanks, Adam. That's awesome. Yeah, Scott is selling, I think, the prints of that on his website. And he was pretty pumped, and he's got the original at his house now. I don't do that just for anyone on birthdays, but like it it's like his big 5-0. I'm like, you wanna do something cool for your friends, like I don't know. So it was fun. It was also fun to play in that toolbox with like someone else's characters. Like I almost want to make that a goal, like maybe like once every 3 or 4 months to do like fan art of friends, like their comics, but like as like B movie posters or EC comic covers or something. I just think that would be super cool, and also hopefully like make their day. Because I was trying to think like, wouldn't that be cool to like see somebody do fan art of like your comic in like their style, like not in like a mimic of your style. I don't know. I just thought that would be cool. So I'm glad you dug it. And then I thought, I don't know. I also was like fairly low on the budget. So I was like, hey, this is something, I can turn down a client here or there to like make that happen. It was fun. It was fun. But like I really like that toolbox and like of playing with with his characters, because like once again, like he made, I like Young and the Dead a lot. I think it's a fun comic. It's also like a nice break from like the comic I've been working on the last few years, where it's like you sometimes want to draw some zombies. um, and so it was like nice to have an excuse to do that too. So, but it definitely helps that Scott has a really, really cool comic. I like his comic. Okay, let's see about why people. Oh wait, no, about purpose. Oh my gosh, I skipped a sentence and I was like, was my coffee plan not going to work here? No, it will work. So this is going to say about um, purposelessness. How are things holding up? Oh, Chris Cawagua. How you doing, Chris? If you're gonna be up for a while, man, let me know. I'll have you hop on. If not, no worries. Chris Cawagua, you guys should check out his YouTube channel. Also, Sketchboy01. But and then Kitten Rivet. Both really worth checking out. Good illustrator, good friend of mine from art school, actually. No zombies in my comic. Actually, that's the big twist. In like 2 pages, wouldn't there be? I have thought about doing that. like I don't think I will. What is this? That's why I did the Furrier tomorrow, stepping out of my usual wheelhouse to make something different. Yeah, it's a good practice, right? But anyhow, I have thought about doing that. Like, I think that would be cool. I don't want to compromise my story for it, but I do think that would be a really cool story where you do it as like a slice of life, like auto bio, and then at the end, it's just like it turns out it's going to be like this crazy sci-fi, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that would be really cool. Or you find out it's like my character and all his plight and like striving and stuff, like is really just a character like in this world full of superheroes or something. Like it would be interesting. I'm not going to do it, but I have thought about it. I've also had days where I'm really sick of working on it and I'm like, I just want to have like a zombie come in and be like, here's my zombie who's gonna come in and eat me over there. I don't know. Slow build was just a slow build to zombies. Yeah, exactly. I was doing like the Walking Dead thing, just like 2 graphic novels to get there, as opposed to like a slow build in the first issue. Okay, so right, science fiction slice of life would be so fun to do. I actually think um like some of like it's something to consider. It's something I might do maybe on a future project, because I do love that like Art Spiegelman's Mouse like is super slice of life and true and like historical fiction, but it's not even really fiction, it's just memoir. But it's like history, family history, covering really heavy topics, but like personifying characters as like animals, and it's like one of the most powerful things I've ever read. So I actually think that would be really cool. So that's more on like the serious end, but like then just doing one where you're doing like auto bio, but like in you do auto bio, but instead of like the world being the world we know, maybe it's like just set on a different planet, but it's still like auto bio, like I don't know. I've definitely thought about it. I've also, like I said, there's just been days where I've gotten sick of the comic, like because you you live with a comic for 5 years, and there's like once or twice in 5 years where you're just like, you know what, it'd be cool to just have the character like get like explode randomly. But I don't have to deal with them anymore. um some of James Kachalka's stuff is like that at times. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What was his comic called? Elf Quest. Is very like it's very like auto bio, and yet it's slice of life, and also it's in this like weird sci-fi fantasy world. All right, so let me see here. I'm gonna send Chris an invite just in case. You don't have to join. If you want to, you can. Let's see here. Okay, sent the link. Oh, American Elf. Thank you. Thank you for remembering that. Yeah. I actually like Kachalka a lot. I was actually weirdly enough like discovered him a lot later than like most people. Um but I do remember like my wife at the time worked at Art Supply Warehouse, and um they had super, I can't say it on here. Super effers. Um It's funny. I mind. I don't know. There's times where I don't mind cussing on here, but whatever. Yeah, yeah. I figured that much, Chris. No worries. um. Uh. But anyhow, like, so she picked up that comic because I told her I was interested in it, and then I remember reading it in a night and being like, "How did I not follow this guy? He's hilarious. He's amazing." Um. So yeah, I always kind of feel bad that I got into him so late. Wasn't that late, but at the time, like I think everybody was like, "This guy's amazing," and I finally kind of figured it out. Okay, this is gonna be a hand, sort of like that, and then this is gonna be the finger in there. And this is gonna have like that swirly, just a real like weird kind of reference to that other panel. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna fix this up a little bit and then kind of move on to the next panel. All right, so this is gonna be the hand. It's sort of so Chris, it's cool that you figured out how to rig up the trench run to your car. That's so cool. How did you get it to override? Like I know that was kind of the issue before. Like so for anyone watching this who didn't happen to see the stream where Chris kind of showed this, and then since I think he's posted it on his Instagram, but and also on his YouTube channel. But so Chris was to learn After Effects like and get a little better with it. He came up with a project to do the trench run kind of targeting computer from Star Wars. And so but I think his secret goal was to have a targeting computer that he could have running on the digital screen of his car. so you could feel like when he's driving in uh, the trench run in Star Wars. So yeah, so anyhow, he was making this like during one of the streams or like wrapping it up or something, and kind of shared the YouTube, and it was just the coolest thing. But then I think had talked about in the chats like sort of coming bumping into a problem of like the and Chris, if I'm getting any of this wrong, correct me. But he kind of bumped into some problems where it was like the video device on his car wouldn't let him play like a YouTube video, like something about the safety defaults wouldn't let him like run the video on his car screen. But now like he has a video on Facebook of him running it on that screen in his car, or sorry, did I say on Facebook, on YouTube, um, with like a little R2D2, um, and it's the straight up trench run screen, which is really cool. So anyhow, I'm just kind of curious how you overrode it, Chris. That's kind of crazy and awesome. Okay, so now I want to pull that a little bit more. As long as the car's not moving, I can play DVDs on the screen. Just pretend I'm driving while making pew pew sounds. Yes, that's awesome. That brings me back to being a kid. I don't even know if this is legal anymore, but like when I was younger, um, my mom would let us like she'd just give us the keys to the car and like there were certain rules. Well, no, she wouldn't give us the keys. I'm sorry. She would just unlock the car door and let us play in the car without the keys. And, like in the driveway of our house, but um and there were many a time where we would play in that car and pretend we were in like Star Wars and it was like the cockpit of like an X-wing. So I think that's pretty awesome. I don't even know if you could do that anymore because I think like yeah, I think it's kind of like illegal to have your like leave your kids in a car. Um, but uh, but yeah, that was awesome. I can't have this be I Heart New York, even though I would totally. I actually do have an I Heart New York. That still cracks me up. What what could I do to avoid getting sued by I think I need to ditch the I Heart New York mug idea. Because Milton Glazier uh, and the city of New York are really nuts about that. So I'm going to change the coffee mug front to be something else. Because if I'm gonna like mess with being like litigiously messed with, I think I'd rather it be like this one. um, Also, it might be funnier to have like I'm gonna do a really crappy Mickey here because I'm not referencing or looking at what he looks like. So he'll probably look nothing like Mickey Mouse. Let's see here. Okay. This isn't Mickey. This is Picky Mouse. Okay. What should this mug say? It's gonna say, oh my gosh. Okay, it doesn't need to say anything. That's all I want. Okay. All right. As long as it's poorly drawn, it counts as parody. I don't know if you guys have heard of the I can't remember his name for the life of me, and it bums me out. Maybe Adam. Adam's got like a really vast knowledge of comics history, so he might know this guy by name. But there was a guy who was originally part of the Zap Comics crew, like with like R. Crumb and Spain Rodriguez and all those like crazy badasses. Um, and his contribution to that whole scene in San Francisco of like the underground comics was like these really lewd but like very classically drawn Mickey Mouse cartoons. and and he basically got like sued like for years by Disney. And while he was getting sued, he just continued to make these like really, I mean, they were like almost pornographic cartoons of like Mickey Mouse. And I think it was like even something versus the Air Pirates. Like I think that's what the comic was called. Anyhow, point being, it ended up going to like I think the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court was like, well, you can't really, sue him because he's got like the freedom of speech. So I don't know. It ended up being like thrown out of court and with like pretty much like a cease and desist, but there were no like they were trying to get damages and stuff, and they didn't win. Like he ended up actually succeeding at it. But by the time it had gone to the Supreme Court, like they had bled him dry with like just endless lawsuits. Air Pirates, yeah. But I remember that I think there's one particular dude behind it that was like the founder of it, and then I think it was like him and his wife. And then there were contributors later on because as they started getting sued more and more, I think a lot of cartoonists were like, "Dude, I'm jumping in." Was that it, Bobby London? Let's see. Oh, now I'm gonna look that up. Mickey Mouse versus the Air. Oh, it's and the Air Pirates. Dan O'Neill, I think, was like the founder of it, and then it had Bobby London, Sherry Flanagan, Gary Halgren, and Ted Richards. But I guess it was Dan O'Neill. That was the head of the ship, of the Air Pirate ship. That's awesome. Anyhow, I still like that. And I would call that kind of punk rock, but at the same time, I don't want to like anger anyone because I did a stream a while ago where I said Bob Dylan was punk rock, and I had a guy just get really mad in the chats about that claim, and I defended it and stuff, but it was just like I don't want to offend the punk rock police by saying that was pretty punk rock, but I still think it was punk rock. Okay, so now we're on to the fourth panel. The fourth panel. He said, "Yeah, those were pretty extreme. Yeah, like the comics are pretty pretty intense." um, and like I could understand where like Disney was coming from in the sense that like it's not like they were trying to even really parody Mickey Mouse. It was like they were just literally like these are like legit looking Mickey Mouse cartoons where Mickey Mouse is just going to do all sorts of things that are not Disney approved. Um, but still, just it's like I think it's still pretty awesome they did that though. and saw it all the way to like court, like and stuck through with it. All right. So here we go. So funny. I don't think anyone's gonna notice that reference. But when I come to like finally executing it, I'll render it in a very similar fashion too. So hopefully it's a little more recognizable. But still, that'll be there for like the one person who's like, "Whoa." Okay. About why. Okay, and then we're gonna get this. Huh. Okay. I need to restack this type, so I'm not creating little orphan types. This is gonna have this kind of over here to the left. So how's it going in Seattle during all this crazy shutdown business? Because I know it's like pretty surreal in the LA area. I don't know if like Seattle got hit as hard, but I would imagine they did because it's. And maybe I'm wrong by saying Seattle because you may not be in Seattle proper. I just always assume like, in fact, I don't think you're in Seattle, um, Adam. I think you're in Walla. Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure you were in Walla. Um, but anyhow, how is everything going in Seattle with that? I mean, in Washington with that. I always say Seattle when I say Washington, and it's like a brain issue. But anyhow, I hope everything's okay. I know it's been pretty surreal here, where I think everybody's pretty pent up and like ready for things to get back to normal, but they're not going to anytime soon. Um, but I think people are just starting to feel really pent up and I don't know. It's just been an interesting, strange time that we're living through. Um, like for me, the one thing during this time, and I'm sure like Chris and Frank and Mama Soto, like we're all kind of creatives. So I think like one blessing of the whole thing is that we all make stuff. So it's like at least there's something to do. Keep your mind occupied. Um, but it's a hard time, man. So I wonder how things are in Washington right now because Mama Soto's talked about how things are in Texas. Chris lives in Orange County, so it's not like super far from where I am. So I'm like, I have a pretty good gauge on what's going on down there. Um, but yeah. Hmm. For some reason, your county in particular has been a little worse than the rest of the state, but we switched to more lenient. Restaurants are opening back. Yeah, I'm so mixed on that because I'm like, I don't think like they're going to be sending kids back to school in my district too. I think fairly soon, but it's like I don't really think we're going to send my son back because it's like I just until he's like vaccinated or like the teachers are vaccinated, like I'd rather wait. But it is maddening. It's like I wish that weren't a scenario. I wish we could just send him, but I get really worried about that. Fun times with that. So okay, let's see here. I'm trying to think of how to have just like this. Oh, okay, here we go. So here's this part where we're having, but I'm glad things are looking a little better there. Let's see. All right, there we go. Kind of working out how I'm going to do this panel. Yeah, right. I feel for all of you guys with kids. My last graduated in May when it all hit. I figured it would get ugly. Hope it gets better soon. Yeah. Yeah, I hope so too. My main concern with that too is like like the part that makes me nervous about it is like so my son like when he goes to school, it's like literally like every year like if like kids all start getting the flu or like a cold or anything like that, it's like within a week, like every kid in the school has like brought that back to their parents. And then like so Ben will get sick and then it'll get my sick and then eventually I get sick and then I have to call out from work or I go to work and then my coworkers get sick and like it's just this weird thing where I'm like doing the math with like a pandemic and I'm like, oh man, that's not going to be pretty if we all go back. Like, like, I don't know. That's for us. I also think it's different from area to area because like my friend Corey, who's on here often, lives in like Idaho, and I think the conditions on the ground are a little different, you know, in Idaho. Whereas like here, it's like, you know, it's pretty extreme. Um, okay, so let's see here. Although things are improving, like they have like a field hospital set up in the parking lot at our local ICU hospital, like the hospital here that has an ICU wing, and they had a whole field hospital, like almost like a military field hospital, set up in the parking lot because of overrun. But they finally like took that down. Like they don't need it anymore, which is good. Oh, really? Oh, so you were saying Okay, so you guys got it. Wow. Did you get COVID? Like what was it like? Was it rough? Have you recovered from it? Like if you did? Then Frank was saying my kids have been back in school for a while. They're in Corpus with their mother. How are they? Are they hanging in there? Like it's not. Maybe I'm just being overly cautious or overly concerned. Okay. Let's see here. Making progress. I've almost finished a page of my script here. Yeah, pretty bad. 5 of us. We almost got sent to the ER. Oh wow, that's rough. Um, yeah, I've had one really close friend who got it and recovered okay, but has not been able to kick like the exhaustion. Like, I guess there's like a hangover of like just like a fog, like a cloud your head's in. Oh no way. Oh wow, that's brutal. I'm glad you're okay. Okay, and then Frank's friend Anna is from Washington too, so he's learning about time zones. Nice. um, yeah, and then Chris was saying he's glad. Yeah. Oh wow, heart issues from it. Oh, oh wow, that's crazy. And then Chris's wife's cousin's family got it. Oh, that is that is rough. you know, that is very rough. I just like I don't know. So I worry like that's one of the reasons I want to kind of keep my kid home. Um, but I still go into work. Like I haven't stopped. Like I've been going in physically. I'm not going in tomorrow, but so it's like a total possibility. But holy moly, hair loss, taste gone. The thing is awful, but take it day by day, week by week, and thank God for humor. Yeah, right. Um, wow. That's just heartbreaking. And Chris, I'm sorry about that. Just sucks. Oh man, like one of the rough things about that, like it's a weird time we're living in, you know? It's like we're full of so many just so many rough stories of like, you know, things going on in the world that are and like the unpredictability and um there's a lot of heavy weight going on. But I also think it's cool that we can all bond and like kind of get through it, you know? Um, it just it's just rough and kind of unfortunate that it's like so so tough, you know. Why is this like okay? Oh, dude, that's rough. Yeah, those field hospitals. So like that's one of the reasons I was excited. Yeah, me too, Chris. Glad we can still connect online. Yeah, I think it's cool to build these little communities, you know. Um, but it's just oh man, Frank, I'm sorry to hear that too. Frank's congregation lost somebody. Wow. so trippy. Um, it's just like a really interesting and terrifying time, but at the same time, like it's cool we have community to get through it. But yeah, it's a weird thing because I feel like with everything like financially and just like physically that like most of us have all had to go through like in the last like few years, it's just like it's kind of I'm kind of amazed at how resilient everyone's been, you know? Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you're helping people. That's cool that you're I mean, because you probably have some knowledge in the area now. I mean, that's like one of the reasons I want to talk more openly about like, struggles with mental illness and depression and stuff is like I'm not like a doctor or anything, but it's like I have been through it. And so because I've been through it and still live in it, like, still struggle with depression and stuff like that. Like I feel like there's value in sharing a story because it's like you have some kind of like not expertise, but kind of expertise, like having gone through something. So I think that's really cool that you're helping with that stuff. I think it's so funny. So Frank, is Anna close to Walla Walla? Because I don't know enough about um, Washington, but it would be funny if there's like this really like maybe there's like a 1 degree of separation between you two. Um, let's see here. Let's see. Got this going. Trying to do this strange angle, and I think I'm pulling it off a little bit. Okay. There we go. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I was doing this kind of like transparency thing, and I realized I had a button clicked. Blessing was that I was also my parents' caretaker. Dad has COPD, emphysema, etc., and mom had cancer. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm just grateful they survived. I mean, that's heavy. I like this too. Hearing personal stories makes things understandable and real. The news and numbers themselves can just seem abstract. Yeah, for sure. And I think like it definitely helps to have like this broader view. Like it's just kind of cool. To me, it's cool just like that we have like a little room full of people who've experienced all kinds of um, different struggles like during this whole time. It's crazy. Yeah, I understand that, Adam. It's weird, but like I probably I'll say like the thing that made it easier for me is time. Cuz like I wouldn't have written about this like um I'm actually thankful I didn't write about this like as it was happening because like it something cool happens with like distance. So it's like you kind of start gaining perspective um on like the scenarios and like what your mindset was or is. And I think it's helpful to like have a little bit of time involved. So I would say like just, if I were giving advice to somebody as to whether to like write super confessional graphic novels, like I'm all about that. Like I love comics that get raw and talk about real things. But I also think like a real strength with a lot of those is if there's time, like, cause I think sometimes without time, you can be like really close to an issue, like to an extent where maybe it won't, actually be as true as you'd want it to be. But then again, it also depends because it can be kind of had sort of the therapy element to it. But like, I do think like sometimes confronting, like mental struggles and stuff like that can be helpful too. Mama Soto, I find it easier to talk openly about my stuff than publish it. Feels too permanent. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, even that, like I probably like that probably got easier with time, because I do think, I don't know why, but for some reason, like I think time is like the thing that made it doable for me. Yeah, I get that. Some rough drafts and stuff like that, very explicit and honest. I started putting comics and songs like that away, and it has been easier to get over it. Yeah, I totally agree. It's weird, but like I said, I think that's one of those things where like time and distance helps. you know. Um, okay, so here we go. Because I think if I had written this too close, yeah, I'm trying to think about it. Like I'm sure it's different for everybody, but for me, like if I had written this too close, to when all these things happened, I think I would have. I think it would have just made me more sad. Okay, so here we go. But like what was weird was like years after, like I had this clarity about the whole thing. Not like, because I think the thing about like mental health issues too is like this. There's a misnomer that like it suddenly gets solved, and everything's great. Um, and things like that don't tend to get like permanently solved in this like weird perfect like bow tied and suddenly everything's hunky-dory and great kind of way, but you do kind of develop ways of dealing. And like for me it's like so I do think like a distance down the road, it's a lot easier to write about. Okay, so let's see here. So I'm going to save this. And we are at the 2nd hour mark. And I'm pretty excited. And I appreciate everybody who's hanging out in the chats and having these cool conversations, vulnerable conversations. So fun. I'm going to take a 20-second break. And because I do that at every hour. And then I'm probably going to power through and finish this page. That's my goal. So I'll be right back shortly. But I love the conversation that's going on in the chats. It's great. All right. So that's a great question. I'm just going to throw that up there. What is everybody working on? You guys want to share? Frank is working on his mini. Want to talk about your mini, Frank? Nice. Adam is cleaning, possibly going to do some sketches when he's done. Good. Cleaning's good too. I need to do more of that myself, actually, more cleaning. Let's see. Chris, what are you working on? What are you sketching away on nowadays? Chris, I feel like, is like this mad scientist who's always working on something weird. I knew it would be Star Wars related. Chris, I've been deep diving into the Clone Wars cartoons, like, because there were a bunch I missed when it was airing. And it is so good, but it's like overwhelming. Like, but it's a really good series. I love Disney Plus because it has it all like there. But Chris said, yeah, a BB-8 at a rock concert as part of this March of the Robots drawing challenge, kind of Inktober, but all robots. That's awesome. Okay. I should probably get back to watching some of that. I keep getting sucked into watching like heavy political stuff. And then I think it even affects my conversations and stuff because I like get really, really passionate about political issues and stuff. And which is good and I think important to like stay in touch with like what's going on in the world. And honestly, like I might even venture to write like one of the projects that I have boiling in my head is kind of a historical research kind of comic where about like a specific political time and I think it would be cool and I haven't really seen a comic about it so it serves that as well but at the same time it's like there's times where it's like good to like back up from like debates and like history and current events and like just look to like the beauty of fiction, you know, especially when writing nonfiction. I think it's important to like not forget to dip into fiction. And then we got Frank working on the horror mini. He finished it. I did read the PDF. I'm excited about it. I want to see a sequel where the trees rise again, Frank. Those poor trees need vengeance. Also, I just think it'd be interesting. And then working on the illustration of Mask Woman. Yep, I love it. I think that's great. I think it's great that everybody's working on stuff. What are you working on, Mama Soto? Are you still brochuring? She was working on a brochure design the other night. All right, so here we go. Why is this? Okay. Okay. I had my Photoshop like crash the other night when we were streaming. And I had to change some of my settings. If any of you guys, I doubt anyone like watched the entire stream. But there was a point, I think Frank was there actually during the whole thing. So I shouldn't be saying I doubt anyone watched it because Frank was hanging with us. But I had to like reset a lot of like my memory settings because OBS, the system I use to do the streams, sucks up a lot of memory. And then Photoshop sucks up a lot of memory. So when you're streaming from Photoshop, it can like overload your RAM. And I have a very small amount of RAM on my computer, which I should fix. Because I like bought my computer back when like RAM was like, I don't know, like almost like going for like gold prices. Let's see. Supposed to finish a film poster for Dallas Improv, but took a break. That sounds like a fun design job, though. And then also Dallas Improv sounds pretty rad. Is that like an improv comedy thing? That sounds really cool. Felting, Hollow Knight for my 19-year-old. He wants one. Huh. And then, yeah, Frank was there till the end. Frank is a badass. Movie is called F News. That's hilarious. That's cool. Yeah, that sounds like a fun client. I like working with comedy. Chris Caligue has done quite a few comedy posters. Let's see here. He did one for Patton Oswalt a while back, long ago, and it was really cool. Do you still have copies of that Patton Oswalt one, Chris? Because if you do, we should talk. I should pick one up. I'm sure you probably don't have any left, but if you do, we should talk about bartering or purchasing. Because Patton Oswalt's awesome. So I'm mixed on improv. Living in LA, and Chris can probably attest to this, but like living in Los Angeles area, it's not uncommon. Hold on a sec. I gotta think about this for a second. You still got some? Are you selling them, Chris? You slanging those wares? Is there a link? Are they available on your website, or is that something we could work out a little thing on the side? I might still have some Python posters. I might be able to swap you a Python print for a Patton Oswalt print. We could do like a print exchange. All right. Okay. We're gonna have to do a print exchange because I'd like to have one of those in my my house. I think the time you did that, like we had like an apartment, and I didn't necessarily have as much room to like hang something. But yeah, that would be fun because Patton's badass. All right. So anyhow, point being, Chris could probably attest to this, but like when you live in the LA area, you hear improv and you're like, oh no. Because like there's a mix of like some of the best improv in the world is in Los Angeles, and I'm sure in New York as well. And then some of it is terrifying. Like it's and it's just kind of depends. So you have like Comedy Bang Bang, that's like one of my favorite improv shows, and you have like, you know, like a lot of legit improv downtown, but then you also have like a lot of friends who will be like, you should totally come to my improv troupe show, and you make the time and you drive down to watch a bunch of adults like do the most boring thing on the planet, and you're kind of obligated to be like, that's great, like good job with your improv. Yeah, so Chris put it pretty well. Everyone is an in an improv troupe in LA, but this is a fair point. But there are some amazing talents too. It's always a gamble, totally. So it just depends. And then there's troops that, like, if you see something with like Paul F. Tompkins or something, like, it's always amazing. If you see something like smaller, like a small troop, yeah, you're really rolling the dice. And when it's bad, it's like terribly bad. Um, but it's also hard to know, because with comedy too, when like people are starting out, they're still kind of finding their chops and like sort of feeling out the stage and feeling out what's going on. Um, yeah. Ah, live comedy for the first time in LA a couple of years ago. It is a million times funnier in person. Um, Ron Lynch's Tomorrow Show. I have not seen that, but that sounds cool. Um, yeah, comedy when it's at its best in like a group, and this is one of the things you're like, we're not going to experience for a long time because of COVID. But it's like when you're in a crowd and like something's funny and you feel that like contagious laughter just start bubbling up in an audience, where it's like the guy next to you just starts kind of chuckling, and it's like a rolling wave that kind of hits. And it's a beautiful experience when it's done. Like when it's done well, it's like the best. Um, yeah, and then Chris was saying we've been watching some Zoom comedy shows. It's so weird though. I miss the live experience. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, like live comedy, you just can't replace live comedy. Okay, so how am I gonna do this sequence? This one I'm gonna do a zoom out. I know it's weird to just show somebody like sitting having coffee, but I feel like that is part of that like show don't tell type thing, where it's like sometimes like when the narration like, and I think I do fall prey to this sometimes, where it's like I'll write a narration and repeat it in the image. Um, and sometimes it's more effective to have the narration and the image be like functioning in two separate ways. And that's something I try to remember. I don't always remember. And then sometimes I intentionally break that too, because there's also times, um, like there's a sequence early in the story where it gets into like a violent crime, and it's important that it is sort of almost like hitting the person who's reading it over the head with facts. It's made in a way to like cause kind of overload. So when done for impact, you can break rules, but in general, that's one I'm like trying to remember a lot, is like if I'm showing something, um, then I need to like sometimes show something else. Um, Thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's weird. I try to vary it, but there are times where it just has to be. So it just really depends. um, but in this case, it's like I think it'll benefit a lot from a little bit more ambiguity. Okay. So that's going to be a little bit further away. Going to have this character here. Yeah, exposition is weird. I can kind of understand, because exposition can suck. But I agree with you, Adam. Like, I do think sometimes it gets a worse rap. Like, it can be used well. Um, and also, I think like for the kind of like first person narratives um, that I like it's not bad to have it it's not bad to have it kind of mixed a little bit. But I can understand. It's weird. I can kind of understand why people are opposed to it. It just depends on the story. I think it's like everything else. That's a good point. Bad exposition is the worst, but not all exposition is bad. Agreed. And there's times where exposition can be used for humor, like I did that a lot in the there are a lot of childhood sequences in the first book where like I use exposition as humor. So like I'll say like I was excited, and then it'll have like a character saying I'm excited, like, but that's more for like humor, you know, because it's like the repetition of it, of having somebody say like it was awesome, and then someone say this is awesome, like just the repetition of that I think is funny. I feel like it's funny. Kawagiwa and I, like Chris and I, used to have, because we both like love comedy, and we used to have like long late night conversations about like comedy and like what makes things funny and like what makes a good bit, and it's interesting because it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's funny, like you would. I don't know if like a lot of people would read that from like that I'm a big fan of comedy, you know. Um, yeah, thank you, Adam. That's kind of the vibe. Um, One of my favorite movies of all time is Royal Tenenbaums, and then also like Royal Tenenbaums is pretty much just Franny and Zoe. Well, it's not really Franny and Zoe. It's more like just the Glass family from from Franny and Zoe, and then Seymour in Introduction, like the um and JD Salinger is like one of my favorite writers, and he writes very much like that. And so it definitely, yeah, that's definitely a pretty intentional thing. So I'm glad you picked up on that, man, and I'm kind of glad it works. Even though it works, though, like I still fall prey to like a moment like this where I was going to get very literal, and it might actually do better to show the character and then have the exposition say something different than what I'm showing, just for like a little bit of emotional impact on just this one panel, you know. I'm just glad, like one of the things that's tough with comics too is like you make these things, and half the time you don't know if like anyone is going to give a shit. And it's neat and really encouraging, to hear if like anyone actually was interested, and like hearing that something worked is really encouraging. So um, that makes me have like a little bit of second steam for like the next thing. um, get through this first thing. Yeah, right. There is something about that, appreciating that range between comedy and tragedy. Like it's like a fine line. Um, and I do think it's fun to dance in that and kind of cross the line every once in a while. Some of my favorite stuff like is totally comedic, and then it'll just do a hard turn like over the line because it's been straddling that line in comedy for like the majority of whatever the story is, and then it goes like instantly to tragedy. Yeah. Okay, so how was that a comfort? Okay, so this is going to be, let's see here. Let's see if I can find that. Okay, couldn't find it. Yeah, I think your lavish rendering helps it a lot too. Ah, dude, cool. Yeah, it's funny. One of the things I've been noticing though, like when we're doing the indie review show, it definitely like reviewing other work like makes me feel way less confident about my own work because there's so many good artists out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying my hardest on these pages to make them the best I can. And sometimes like it might be kind of counterintuitive. Like um, I've been told by a couple people like I could just publish these, and I like it to me. I just wouldn't. It wouldn't be the vision I have to like finish these, like to have it be kind of like these loose storyboards. Um, my anger continued. What could my anger continue to be? Okay, that will be more of like an expositional thing. Oh, did I forget my dog? I'm gonna have him like up here. It's like Chris has met this dog too. He is um, a monster when it comes to food. And so he's gonna be like, if you're eating, he'll be like right up there, just like, dude, give me some of that, whatever that is that's on the counter. You're at the counter. I need to eat whatever that is. So that's gonna be him. This is the noodliest little dog sketch in the world. Okay, so got that fixed. Now we're gonna do my anger continued. But yeah, it's one thing I try not to think about at this stage is like how much work the final is going to be. I'm just trying to kind of plug. I think that's the big trick to comics is you just kind of plug forward and kind of forget that like I think I even started this stream just being like, oh, this will probably be an hour, and then it's like you're into an hour longer, and you're like, okay, well I'm still plugging forward, I'm still making progress. It's like you almost have to play tricks on your mind to kind of forget how how long these things take. Um, you know, Chris was saying we had to guard our burgers like treasure if we were near the couch and the dogs. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. CK in particular, like let's say you're eating food, right? And you set down your food at the table, and then you like maybe you're drinking a glass of water and you go to refill the water. In the time it takes you to refill the water, he will have digested your whole plate. He's insane. And when he was a puppy, we took him to like a one of those pet training things, and they literally were just like, "Yeah, this dog is just yeah, he's just not gonna, he's just crazy." Like, they kind of sent us home. Like they were like, "This, yeah, this dog isn't gonna." I don't know. Okay, so here we go. Um, this is going to be about anger, and I do think it'll be good to have just like a good old "Arr, I'm so mad" kind of page. You know who drew like angry faces like nobody's business? Sam Keith. Like, I feel like Sam Keith was like the king of like drawing like really scrunkly, like just mad, fury filled faces. Um, anyhow, just saying. I wouldn't mind kind of. I have the whole run of the Max in a long box in my garage, and I need to reread through those. Um, I'm wondering if they hold up. I'm sure they do, but it's like I loved that series so much as a kid. And I shouldn't say as a kid. Well, I guess it is a kid, like as a 16-year-old, like that's a kid. Um, but I remember just like really, really like connecting with that comic. And I think part of it was just that really expressive art where it's like he'd use like splattered ink and just like really emote like with his characters and just like things like drawing like huge feet, like, and just having the guts to just be like, no, this is just going to be a giant block like this foot. um I don't know, like, anyhow, my point is Sam Keith drew really great pissed off people. And this is why I'm nervous about that show later today at like 4 o'clock. Like, I hope I don't bomb when I do like a live thing. Um, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the stream, but I have crazy imposter syndrome. Like, and I think we all do as artists, but I definitely feel it. The entire time promoting this book, I have had moments like where if I get like uh like if a newspaper like wants to talk to me and do like an interview, I instantly think, well, they must be making a mistake. Like, and then the day of the interview, which I'm sure like this is going to be something that will happen even with this podcast. Yes, Mama Soto, Sam Keith did Wolverine. Yeah, he did the run on Wolverine, and like I think it was like the early '90s. He did some of the best, most iconic covers. But he's the guy who like made him like 20 times as short, like widened him out, and like shoved a cigar in his mouth and just made him look really gnarly and pissed. Um, so anyhow, like then what happens is like 5 minutes before or like an hour before, I'll be like, oh, I haven't heard from this reporter who said they were going to, interview me. Well, that makes sense. They're going to cancel. They're definitely going to cancel because there's like there's just no way they're going to want to run like a story on like my little book, like, and then even when I got a publishing deal for it, it's like, my head goes through all of these reasons why it's like, well, it's not the biggest publisher, and even for independents, and it's like uh um and then doubts of that, like, well, the publisher's probably going to drop it, and like, like just going through all of the different uh scenarios of like how this thing will fail. And I have that every time. And then when I do an interview with like a reporter, I'll be like, well, they aren't going to run the interview. And then if they run the interview, I'm like, I don't know, that was just like a weird luck thing. And then it just cycles back and forth. But even after I talk to the reporter, I'm like, I must have made an ass out of myself. Like there's all that goes through the process for me, even though I feel really good about the work. That's like I still have these moments of just constantly not being able to just be kind of totally present and just be like, cool, so if that went well, it went well. If it didn't go well, whatever. And I have that all the time. um, And it's a fascinating thing. It's one of those things I have no idea if it ever goes away. And I envy people who that's not their experience through the whole thing. But I tend to think like maybe it's something where it's a little more common that that's how like most people feel. Like they, like when they get interviewed or anything like that, like maybe they're second guessing themselves. I think maybe that's why like a lot of people get really awkward during interviews, is like it's just like it just makes total sense. Um, but yeah, dude, thank you, Adam. Yeah, good point. Like Sam Keith's um, run on Wolverine, and then like I said, the Max, which I feel was like his magnum opus. Although I really liked, he did this little comic after the Max that was called Friends of Max, and if you can get a hold of that, that's a really cool series. From what I remember, it's been a long time though, so like I said, maybe these are all not as good as they are in my head. I like that. Sat in on a talk about imposter syndrome in Clubhouse last week by designer Christo. Yeah, and it's weird that like somebody like Christo would have imposter syndrome, and yet he's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's mystifying to me, but I do think it just kind of sticks. And for me, the only way to fight it in a weird way, like even for tomorrow, like right, I get a little nervous about like the thing, and I'm just like, yeah, but like it's not the end of the world if it does suck. And then at the end of the day, usually I'm my worst critic. So like I'll go through one of those things. Like I said, every news interview I've done for this thing felt like, oh no. And then it's ended up being like not really a big deal. And like they've all come out fine. So it's like I think going through it and just kind of facing the fear helps too, or you're just like after a while you just kind of go, yeah, I mean, like worst case scenario, like it's just you know, it's not as bad as I think. And then, like I said, I also find that just doing it like multiple times, where you're like, well, I did that last. Like I had those same thoughts. Um, I had the same thoughts like the last interview, and that went fine. That to me is the easiest thing that helps. Um, but yeah, but imposter syndrome's interesting, and it's like I think we all kind of struggle with it. More of us struggle with it, I think, than let on. I am always really suspicious though of artists who don't experience that, because I'm like, are you being honest and not experiencing that? um which I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. That I'm gonna move this eyeball a little bit to the left because that needed to happen. Because otherwise, he was starting to have eyes that do not work like eyes. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's the only way to do it, and then try to be vulnerable, and admit to stuff. Like, because, like, there was a time where I wouldn't have publicly said what I just said. I'd just be like, yeah, I'm a badass. I had interviews, um, or I would have like faked my way through it and stuff like that. And it's like I just kind of another nice thing that's happened with that is I'm just older now, so like it's not as much of a struggle in that sense either, because it's like you get kind of older and you're like, well, that's not right. I mean, you build experiences like Mama Soto, you talked about like you've survived COVID, right? And I mean, you have lasting impacts from that, but still, if some like bullshit thing comes up or you have some like brief moment of like self doubt, you are gonna be able to go like, "Holy shit, but I survived COVID." You know, like, it's like it the older we get and the more of these experiences we kind of accumulate, and I hope I'm not being out of line, but it's just like I feel like the more experience we accumulate, the more struggles and failures and successes that we kind of rack up, um, the easier it is to kind of have self honesty because it's like at the end of the day, let's say like tomorrow's interview doesn't go well. Well, that's today's interview. It's just a thing, and it's not. I've never had anything like that like plague my career or anything. Um, so I don't know. Like to me, I think that's one thing that's made me able to kind of cope with that kind of self doubt because like that's all back here, but most of the time, if I have that come up now, I'm able to recognize it for what it is. It's not that it goes away. It's just easier to recognize and kind of quell very quickly because it's like, oh, okay, I know that voice. That's the voice I hear every time I do an interview, you know, um, or that's the voice I hear when whatever. But it's like I know that's not actually a true voice. So let's see here. That was kind of a weird off-topic thing. I hope that wasn't super, strange to talk about. Let's see. So this is going to be that weird part. All right. And occasionally kick a wall is what this one's going to say. We're getting there, folks. We are getting there. Getting through this page. I'm pretty excited about how this is going. Keith's take on Ghost Rider. I don't know if I've seen that. Okay, I need to see that now. Wait, I have seen these. I remember these. It like took me a second. And I'm like, oh man, I remember these very vividly. Like I remember this Ghost Rider cable. Oh my gosh. These are gorgeous. Oh, that's ugh. Yeah, that's the other thing. So Adam was saying, remember, you're also the host of a show that people have self doubt about going on, right? And like that's the thing is like, yeah, it's a weird thing. I think it's just a very human thing where I think we constantly feel. Um, I think the battle of being a human being, especially one that struggles with mental struggles, is like the fact that I think we tend to forget that like there's a lot of things that are very universal. Like it makes sense to get nervous before walking into a room where you don't know anyone, and like, and I think the myth that's out there is that like people get to a level or gain some kind of thing where they don't feel like a little nervous before walking into a room full of a bunch of people they don't know. Like um I don't know. So but I definitely agree with you. Like I think it's kind of a weird thing that like I can host a show that I know people like and they'll feel kind of nervous before going on. And what's funny is if I went on the same show, I'd feel the same amount of nerves. Like actually Artcasters is a really good example. Um so my friend Kevin and then Scott were doing it and I felt nervous and I think Jeff at the time was doing it too. And I felt nervous as hell before going on it. Because it was like, what if they think I'm lame? Like, I had all that stuff. And then eventually, like, they asked me to be a host, and it was just weird because it was like had no idea how I did on that thing, you know. So it's like it's weird. It's just weird how like self-talk can kind of be very different from like the perception other people have of you, you know. And I think often other people have a better view of us than we have of ourselves. Or it's split. It's like usually they have a better or worse view than we have of ourselves. So yeah, um, that's a good question. Actually, do we feel nervous hosting? I feel nervous a little bit sometimes. Like if um, most of the time I feel pretty comfortable, but if there's like somebody I have on that I've been like a huge fan of for a long time, it took me a while to get comfortable having David Chelsea on, which is weird because I used to hang out with him in Portland. But he's a guy I always feel a little like it takes me a minute to kind of feel comfortable around him because I'm such a fan of his work. And like literally like one of his comics was like a huge inspiration to me when I first started writing like autobio comics. And so that took a while, but he's like a really cool guy and like he listens to like similar music and you know he's charitable and awesome and fun and like he's a dude, you know. Like but I still like every once in a while when we'll have him on, I feel a little I'll have like a minute or two of like geekdom where I have to kind of tone it down and remember like wait a minute, I know this guy. Like I actually know this guy, like I've hung out with him at his house. Um, but I said I don't know. So there's a few times where I have that. Um, but yeah, you know. Yeah, and then I think that could be a little impostery too, where you're like, I don't feel impostery, but I feel like sometimes I've had very good luck. Yeah, that though I don't know if that's impostery because I definitely think um it's a mix, right? Because it's like you know that can verge into imposter syndrome because it's like if you feel like everything's luck, um, then that's more like imposter syndrome. If you're just aware, like you know, Chris, you and I like have been at this long enough to realize like we're really lucky. It's like we're very lucky. We're lucky to have been in the class we were in. Like we were in a class of extremely talented and ambitious and like driven artists that all sort of pushed each other to levels that I don't know if we would have all achieved on our own. Um, and then we were also just lucky in the sense of like getting clients because it's crazy. Like I know people are like 20 times more talented than me that can't get artwork. I mean, not artwork, but work in creative fields. And then I also know like just from the industry, it's like we're fortunate to have like anything that's working, you know. But that's a good point, Chris. Performing in bands helped public communication ability. Totally, dude. Because when you're in a band, before you set on stage, like get on stage, like there's always like a little bit of nerves, and you guys know this. Like if you ever have to public speak, there's like a moment, like no matter how confident you are, you usually have a little moment of like slight anxiety before you kind of step out in front of a crowd, whether it's 20 or like 100, 200 people. And there's this great thing about music where it's like you kind of just like, first off, like if you book a show, you're lucky to get the show. And then if you have people showing up, you're lucky they showed up. Like you're lucky they found the flyer. You know, so you have people like there waiting to see. So you have people who need to be entertained, and then you've set yourself up in a situation where you have to go on. But there's like a moment of like anxiety with that. And part of the way to get over it is just to lean into it and be like, F it and rock out. And then if you screw up, cool. And then you learn little lessons playing music live too, where it's like, hey, if you screw up on stage, like let's say you play the wrong note or something. And Adam plays music too, so I'm sure he's probably learned similar lessons, but it's like there's a value in, like, if you're in a band and you play the wrong note, you don't like stop the song and go like, crap, I messed up the note. That's a really quick way to like end a show. You just kind of go through with it. Like you finish what you started and make it work. Oh, cool. So I play guitar like everyone else. um, and then I can play bass and stuff, but I mainly play guitar. And what's weird is I took a long break from it. So I did when I was younger. I was in a lot of bands, and then I took like a long break. So by the time you might have known me from BIPT, I don't know if I was like actively playing music other than occasionally like noodling on an acoustic. But a couple years back, I moved back to this town where one of the guys who was in a band with me lives like a street down. And so we were like talking about the days when we used to play shows, like punk shows and stuff. And we were just like realizing, like, wait a minute, we live like a street away from each other. We have all the instruments now. You know, we actually have the budget to like have decent amps. Like we should like we should actually like do like write some new music and stuff. So we made this band called No Saboteurs, and then like we would play like bar shows and stuff. And unfortunately, like that's probably fallen apart a little bit because of the COVID thing. Because we just can't get together and like jam or play together. But it was fun. And then just for fun, I like did a solo album called The Bottle of Better Than that you can find, and that's like a weird folky, like acoustic protests thing. But yeah, so that's my music. Thanks for that question. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, it was a group. It was a really badass class, and to me, I'm like that's one of the things I feel luckiest about, because I met my wife in that class, and then like not just that, but it's like just the talent. Like I mean, just crazy talent in the class we were in school with. Yeah, if you want to check it out, it's on like Spotify too, so you don't have to buy the album. You can check it out on Spotify and see if you like it. Let's see. Okay. This is supposed to say I'd occasionally kick a wall. Huh. I play bass and sing, but as a kid, I just wrote. I was too impostered as a kid. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I mean, as a young kid, I mainly, I mean, you've read a little bit about it in like two stories, but it's like I was like a nerd who would like, I would draw comics during recess, you know? But then I remember discovering punk rock in like late junior high, and just like it just cracked open all these doors of like possibility. And so a friend of mine and I, like, we ordered instruments from like a Sears catalog. Like they were horrible. Like the guitar I ordered was like this piece of plywood with like strings attached to it, pretty much. And his first drum set was pretty terrible too. And we just taught each other, like we just learned how to play, and then we wrote songs. Like the second we learned like two chords, we started writing songs and doing band stuff, and like that was a really huge thing for me gaining confidence, because we started playing shows and stuff. So like even when I was in high school, if there was like kind of stupid petty high school like high school drama kind of stuff, I always felt a little above it, because I was like, well, I can just play like a gig with my band, and like we're playing for like college students that are way more mature than this. So like, so it helped us kind of like, it helped me have like a confidence, and like almost like this special secret, where it's like even in high school, if I was like sitting around, I was like, yeah, but they don't know I'm a musician, like I don't know if that makes sense. And then Adam was saying got some albums on Bandcamp, Comic Book Goal, because you want an advertisement for an album. That's smart. Several years since you performed, became too nervous about it. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you, it was like 2 or 3 years ago where we had written enough songs to like book some shows locally. And we mostly just booked shows with other local bands for free beer. And it was super fun. So Frank was saying you were Hannah Montana. uh, I don't actually know what Hannah Montana is. Is that terrible? I hope that doesn't make me old. I should know. And occasionally, okay. So this is supposed to say I'd occasionally kick a wall. That was such an interesting topic. I like lost track of my comic for a second. But like, yeah, there's so many lessons from just like doing live shows. Half of why I even got into like graphic design and illustration was making like flyers, you know, for like band stuff. Um, and then you learn like a whole bunch of stuff before you've even been to art school. Like, you learn the hierarchy, like, right, what's your hierarchy of need on your type. You learn that pretty quick when you're trying to get people to your show. You learn to spell check. You learn to make sure you have the time. Like you make sure your time that you're listing is a little bit earlier than the show actually starts. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, yeah. Sad thing with entertainment, both my older kids work in the music industry there in LA. Thankfully they still have their jobs, but still, yeah, dude, the live entertainment that's yeah, like anything live has taken a very huge financial hit. Yeah. I mean, there's just no way around it. um Oh, okay. Miley Cyrus. She played an average kid in school, but at night she was a rock star. Okay, I was that, except not a star. I played like really small shows at like coffee shops for like 20 people. Like, at our height, uh, when I was in bands, I think we had 150 or 200 people um, in an audience. I think that was like at our peak, like the biggest show I ever played. Um, So never huge, but I will say it's fun. And like I said, you learn some lessons about overcoming anxiety and just kind of getting through it. And a little bit of kayfabe too, where it's like, like the kayfabe part would be like the when you're on stage with a band and you misstep and you play like the wrong chord, you fake like you meant it. You're just like, yep, that was not the wrong chord. That was the right chord. If you heard the wrong chord, you're wrong. Um, there's a little bit of kayfabe too, and I think that goes for like public speaking. Like if you have a speech memorized and you like misstep and like forget what you're talking about, you can improvise a bit and just kind of pretend it's all part of the charade. Um, I didn't know that was Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus were the same. And again, I kind of feel like, yeah, I must be old. I also don't know what just happened with StreamYard, so I'm hoping it's still working. Let's see what this is. No. What is going on? Okay, so StreamYard just kind of weirded out, so I'm gonna reboot it and see if that works. If I pop out, I'll be right. Did that work? I'm not quite sure what happened with StreamYard there, but that was kind of weird. I know that like my view where I can usually see the chats somehow just got like zoomed in like a million times. Um, so I hope that works. But yeah, I do think that's one of the tough things. I'm back. How long did I disappear? Was that a long time? Was that a long disappearance? That was very strange where StreamYard like literally like increased in size. So I was seeing like one letter on the screen and I couldn't like zoom out of it. It was nuts. So I was just like, I'm just gonna reboot it. But I'm glad to see you guys. Okay. Mama Soto said it was a week. Hmm. It's been a long time, you guys. I miss you. How's everything been going? I hope okay. I mean, that would be funny if like I had been gone for so long that when I come back, everyone's like, got 10 grandkids and time has passed. It's like the whole storyline of Captain America after he's frozen. I'm like back, like this is amazing, and meanwhile, like half the people who were watching the show have like aged out and are like now in museums as like famous people, famous artists. Yeah, the scene from Interstellar. Totally. I love that. Um, that would be really funny. Chris, I think you and I, whenever we're done with our comics and stuff, we need to collaborate on like a humor comic. Like the sandworms in Beetlejuice. I just love the idea though that like I'd be booted from a chat for like a second and then like come right back and everybody's like, I'm like, hey, where's Frank? It's like, no, Frank's like the president of the United States. I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, dude, we live in Salazar Nation. What happened? um, yeah. Anyhow, so you guys, how often do you get time travel on a live stream? I feel like that's a very unique thing that has just happened on this live stream. It was like real time um, time travel into the future. Actually, this is a weird question. Frank, the prophecy, it's come true. um, okay, so here's a question. Let's say, like hypothetically, like just for fun, let's say the live stream I had time traveled. I'm Oh man, this almost sounds like the "Where would you see yourself in 5 years" question. So if this is stupid, don't feel obligated to respond. But anyhow, if I had time traveled and I did see your future self, you can be silly or serious. What would you like me to see? Like, let's say I had blipped out of this and I came back and it's like 10 years from now. Um, what would you like to see? What would you like me to see? regarding each of you? Like, where would you want to be? So it is in 5 years, where would you want to be? I thought it was like this profound thing I was driving at there, and I'm starting to realize like it's pretty much that. Like, in 5 years, where would you see yourself? And by the way, I'm asking that question with like absolutely, possibly no ability to answer it myself. I love that. Adam was saying, I'm watching the live stream at 1.75 times the speed to see the future. Okay, here's another question. Do any of you guys do that? Like watching YouTube videos at higher speed? Because I've seen people do that. And this does not feel like a very dynamic kicking the wall. That sounds like it. This panel feels like a tapping the wall with your toe, like tappity tap. So I need to exaggerate this crap because what am I, a cartoonist or a photographer here, huh? It's gotta have a little more movement. So Adam is chiming in saying in 5 years, ideally, I would be started drawing pages of my magnum opus after having completed some other books before that. That's brilliant. I should probably watch live streams at a higher speed because you could in theory like consume more content, you know? It's just one of those things where I think I'm like once again probably dating like how old I am, but I'm like I I will forget that's even an option to be like, okay, I'm gonna watch this really fast. And actually it's a really cool option. Like that's pretty badass. Okay, I need to rework this. I need more movement in this foot. It needs to be like more cartooned here. A little more movement. Boom. That's a little better. Okay. Let's make that knee a little higher. Okay. So I'm getting like a hand here. I like that 5 year, man. Adam, I hope to see that in 5 years from now. If I'm still doing these live streams, I actually want to see that. And that's doable. That's like a doable plan. That's a doable plan. Yeah, I'm like curious about the watching things in high speeds because I've seen folks do it, and it's interesting. It turns a bit chipmunks. Yeah, I totally agree. That can be really cool. I mean, I haven't explored it much, but that I could understand where that would be a really cool benefit is like kind of making every like you could make the most actually honestly I should start using that for political um political themed podcasts and stuff because you could catch up on a lot of politics, but at the same time it's like watching it with the chipmunks performing it would be pretty awesome. Okay, this is going to be, once again, tilt that frame. Oh my gosh, I am at 3 hours, you guys. Ooh, I love this. Away from this house, having published my music. I want to hear your music. Do you have music, Mama Soto? Because, like, I think that's pretty rad. And also, the fact that you play bass is pretty badass. There is a long history of rad bassists. Some of my favorite musicians growing up. I mean, it's in punk rock, but it's like Kim Deal. Kim Deal, bassist for the Pixies. Kim Gordon, bassist for Sonic Youth. These were the two Kims that like a lot of my friends and I worshipped growing up. So if you are a bassist and writing music, you could be the next Kim Deal or Kim Gordon. Where are you thinking you'd like where do you want to move out of curiosity? Adam, slowing music down to 0.75. See, that sounds fun too. I need to mess more with like I mean, in theory, when you're doing YouTube, it's like you kind of have this like time god ability. Like, why would you not take advantage of that? And slowing music down sounds fun too. Ladies and gents, we're at the 3-hour mark. So once again, every time we hit an hour, I'm going to take about a 20-second break, and that timing could not be better. So I will be right back after about 2 seconds or 20 seconds. I have music still in the first recording drafts. Son helped produce 5 songs so far. Dude, oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, you should put out a little demo. That's amazing. I want to hear it. Okay. I also like the moving plan. Okay, I'll be right back in like 20 seconds, guys. All right, next panel. Mama Soto very kindly noticed that I'm very disciplined in taking my breaks. Well, that literally comes from years of doing late night sessions working. And Chris probably knows this too, but it's like you figure out these little ways to like not burn out. Because if you're gonna like, it's not this way for everyone, but like if you're gonna work professionally as an artist like Mama Soto, you know this too. It's like it requires like a ton of time, and then like a lot of the times you're doing art for clients that pay the bills and are fun and it's a fun job, but it's like you have this vision you want to see done, like the music you were talking about, or you know what, like it wouldn't even have to be art. Like it could actually honestly be anything, like working on a car, working on like hell, I mean, Chris built like a tiki bar in his backyard, which I think is one of the coolest things in the world. That's a good call, Chris. And if you're out, dude, I get it. I have tomorrow or today off, so I kind of cheated. So go get some rest because I think you have to work in the morning. So go rest. Plus, you need to like load up on as much sleep as you possibly can, sir, with that bun in the oven that is going to be the coolest thing that's ever happened in your life, and yet also probably cost you a ton of sleep. So fill up that sleep bank, Chris. Thanks for hanging too. I appreciate it, and I hope you got some work done, dude. Like I hope this helped. Um, and then Chris was like, "True." Um, let's see here. Adam said, I have to start taking breaks after 1 hour or 30 minutes. My hands hurt after I draw. That has been a fun thing with age, where this hand, luckily not my drawing hand, but my shortcut hand, I have like a special brace that I have to wear, and I had to get a cortisone injection in it because of repetitive motion and injuries. Fun. And I'm counting the day till it happens here. I can already feel like a ball that's like developing at the joint. So at some point, oh, and then Mama Soto said, congrats. And Frank said, Chris is a baker. I, yes. Yeah. That's the answer, Frank. He's a baker. And then Chris said his wife is doing most of the baking. But anyhow, so anyhow, like, yeah, I think it's really important. I think my whole point was just basically like, it's important to come up with whatever works for you to be able to do the thing you feel like you're supposed to do, whatever it works, And then Chris was saying, I helped. Okay, good night. Have a good night, Chris. And honestly, in the morning, or like when the stream is done, or hell, even during the stream, definitely check out Chris's YouTube channel, because like that trench run is pretty amazing and would be really cool in your car. Yes, right. Exactly. I'm guessing Mama Soto were probably about the same age range, and yeah, like getting that movement, and like even today, like I did a really intense exercise with like weightlifting and like rowing and stuff like that. Just have endurance to be able to do this nonsense. Um, but yeah, I mean, like whatever you got to do to kind of survive and like keep your mind healthy and your body healthy, like that's the thing to do. Okay, so I'd occasionally kick a wall, and then, ooh, I love this. Okay. Mama Soto answered that question properly. 16? Exactly. That's how old I am. I don't know if I've mentioned that. I have some wrinkles at 16 and a little bit more facial hair than most 16-year-olds, but yes, I am 16. I probably should have mentioned that at the top. So I'm like about a year into the age where it's appropriate to read the book that I wrote. Let's see here. One time, if there's like a YouTube algorithm that heard me say that, understand that's a joke. Okay, one time I it is weird to think back to this time I'm writing about because I literally like kicked holes in walls. Like, I was not, I was not in a good place in the era this is about. Let's see here. The older I get, the more he used to bug the hell out of me. Now I'm forgetting his name. The Happy Trees guy. You guys can help me out. Mama Soto, who's the Happy Trees guy? Do you remember? It's kind of early in the wee hours of the morning, and so I'm blanking out on a name I would usually remember. Big afro, beard, painted happy trees. Adam, anything? I'd Google it, but I'm drawing. It's so sad too. He has a great show, or did a whole painting show. Bob Ross, thank you. Yes, Frank in with the Bob Ross. Okay, so as I get like when I was younger, that was like the corniest crap in the world. Like I could not stand Bob Ross. Like as a kid, I just thought it was like the hokiest, like fakest thing. But as I get older, my wife and I like were watching a bunch of them, like kind of ironically at first, like haha, it's Bob Ross, you know, like he uses fan brushes and stuff. This is keep in mind, I like if I heard some kid now talk about it like that, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Bob Ross is amazing. But then I started realizing like he's kind of amazing. Like he's kind of amazing. Like his whole ethos is amazing. He makes like kitsch, but he doesn't care that he's making kitsch. Like he owns it and he like knows his craft and he's very talented. And the guy like was like a drill sergeant like in his youth. And so I started like reading up on him and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's biography is compelling. He was like tired of being this like anger filled guy. And that's when he decided to like just kind of retire from like the military and being this like rigid like drill sergeant type guy and just sort of accept like life and like kind of start flowing with things. And so that's why he had that whole like happy trees thing. Like he was like about like trying to find ways to like make like art and life and like really just enjoy things and also try to make people's lives better, right? And so he did things like there's literally, and this is amazing, but there's like a whole, I think it was like a whole season, but it might be even further than a season, where he found like a squirrel, like an orphan squirrel, and he like literally kept it in his pocket and like fed it using like a little like squirter thing, like, and he's like nurturing this little orphan squirrel back to life. Like, and I was just realizing like this, the guy is just like the guy's like awesome, and he's a superhero, and he found a hustle that works, and like um and he had like a real craft that like not a lot of people have. And so it's like that cynical like kid in me, was like, oh, Bob Ross. And I'll still get slightly cynical if somebody's like, hey, that's the epitome of like high art or something. I'd be like, oh, come on, it's Bob Ross. But the point being, like, he was a pretty good artist, and he does do things. Like, watching that show is really cool because there are moments where you're like, holy crap, how did he, that just looked like a blob, and now it's trees in a forest. And um there are just so many things about um him that I like prejudged with, like, in my youth, like growing up, that like now I get as like a kind of older person. Not that I'm like older, but I'm definitely like at an age where I can respect that. Like, where I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool that he like found a way to like bring positivity to people, and like also find a way to like work his art and like um find a hustle, and like and do it in a positive way where he's like benefiting other people's lives, because like I remember like my grandpa, like he was like obsessed with Bob Ross, and like he was like, I think I'm gonna start doing this whole Bob Ross thing. Jake's joining us. How's it going, Jake Twister? I love that pseudonym for like a name. It's just great. Twister is great. How you doing, man? How's your comic coming? Feels like it's been eternity, and I think it's been like 3 days since you were on. So how are you doing, man? I want to hear all about your comic. Adam was saying it's hard to imagine Bob Ross being angry. Yeah, so he was like an angry drill sergeant who was like finding like an he just didn't like that about himself, and like kind of found like this whole different philosophy. Um, and so, like I said, I judge Bob Ross a lot less than I did as a kid. Um, I mean, the art's still pretty like, you know, it's fairly generic, but like I would totally like pick watching a Bob Ross thing over like half of, like, I don't know. I just, my point is, I think the guy was pretty rad. Um and I think that's one of those things I could only see with like age, where I'm like, yeah, that guy's pretty awesome. um I had a similar journey with Neil Diamond. Or when I was younger, I was like cynically like hated Neil Diamond, and like my mom would put on like a Neil Diamond record, and I'd be like, "This is crap, like this is terrible." And then I got older, and I like put on some Neil Diamond, and I was like, "This is pretty good." Like, I like it. It's corny as hell, but it's like good corny. Wrapped up the art and got lettering and kerning left for real. For real, like all what was that, 6 pages or 8 pages? Remind me, Jake. But that's pretty impressive, man. So you've been plugging away in the last like few days on those pages, man. And those didn't look like simple pages too, because it looked like they had like car chase scenes. And let's see here. That's awesome. Chris posted what he drew of BB-8 during our stream on his Facebook, and I just liked it and shared it. Okay. Okay. I don't like this leg thing. I think I actually want this to be a little more like, what have I done kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, that's way more effective. Yep. Better choice. Okay. I want to hear Jake's thoughts though. 8 pages. The sucker was unbearable at the end, but I hauled it in around the 28th. Good job, Jake. That's badass. Mama Soto, it's 5 a.m. This felting thing is quite ASM. Crunch, crunch. Oh, got it. You got ASMR going on. You know what's weird? I don't know if the ASMR thing works for me. Jake's Jake, we need to make like an official patch. So now that you're done with your comic, you need to make us like an icon for the night gang that I can show on these streams. Once it like passes like 12 midnight, it's just going to become like night gang, and then we can all wear fingerless gloves, like with like spikes, and maybe like a feather boa, just to be like, yeah, night gang. Yeah. Sorry, the only reason I think of like feathers when I think of like a gang is like Mad Max, you know? So, all right. Also, like wear some football pads, shoulder pads. Night gang's gonna happen, Jake. All right. You've been initiated, Mama Soto. You are now in the night gang. What's our gang initiation gonna be? I have no idea. This night gang thing is just starting to come up. Okay, so here we go. Um, I would think the gang initiation should be like being up late enough for like the night gang. And I forgot about that. Thank you for bringing back the laser times. Laser times are the day, and nighttime is the night gang. I love it. Night gang. And what we can do is like whenever it's like this late and somebody new comes in the chats, we can just be like, night gang. Like, do one of those. I don't know. I'm trying to think. We need like a gang sign, is all I'm saying. Okay. All right, night gang. Here we go. I'm going to finish this page, even if it kills me. How are you guys doing on your projects right now? Sounds like Jake is doing the best on out of all of us on his projects. Then again, Frank also wrapped up his mini, so maybe I'm just alone here on being in the middle of the crunch. By the way, Mama Soto, I hate to sound ignorant, but I have no idea what felting is. Explain what felting is. Semper Creer. Did that mean to be Semper Create? Because I like that. Hang on, let me look up what that means. Semper Creer. Oh. Okay. I'm pretty excited about this night gang. I know a Night Gang sound effect would be good. If only we knew a bassist musician who could record a sound effect for Night Gang, maybe even in like a theme song. Hmm. Who do we know plays bass who could come up with like a cool bass line Night Gang theme song? Now I'm just like assigning work to you guys. I'm sorry. I'm like, Jake, you need to make a logo. Mama Soto, you need to make like a really cool like theme song. I please disregard what I'm saying, but Hollow Knight. Frank knows I've pained myself through making stories for the anthology we work on. Yeah, dude, like um you need to send me a sneak peek in the Discord, but like the pages that I saw, like uh yeah, you're not like pulling shortcuts or something on there. And this is I will look into it. Mm. So maybe like I mean I am like doing this whole assigning work, but that's pretty cool that you're gonna look into it. I'm kind of excited about that. Okay, I need to finish this page. Okay, here we go. And then it's gonna say one time. Okay. Okay. This is gonna be a tiny little thing here. Okay, and then we need to find. And I am loving this. Okay. Okay. I had to look up a building very quickly. And now I need to save it in my little ref folder for when I actually do the finals. It's good to know. Pull that down here. All right. I know, very exciting. Felting Josh is a craft using wool and needles to create anything, creatures, shoes. Oh, okay. So like with got it. That's awesome. I think that would be amazing. I think felting sounds pretty cool. Um, One thing that I want to do when I'm done with the second book is make like a little figure of like this character, like either 3D print, like that guy. It's like the anyhow, whatever. So I would like to do that. That's a terrible sketch of him, but like the more cartoony kid version. I want to do that at some point, and I was thinking about that, um, or possibly like doing it like knitted or something. So I might have to ask you tips, Mama Soto, on how to make stuff because depending on how time consuming. But I always thought that would be fun to have like a little figure that I could put up on the site. Although I think ideally it'd probably be good to have, one that that was like 3D printed, so I could like, make a couple. And that's in my head, but it's something I'd like to do eventually. But if I decided to do it using something like felting, I would have to ask you for advice on how to make that happen. Figurines would be awesome. Yeah, I think they would. I think especially like once, because I mean, I can't guarantee it, but I can't help but think things will eventually reopen. And when they reopen, like that would be a fun thing to have at a booth, at a comic convention, like little figurines. And that dude, that character is like, there's not much I could make figurines of in my comic, but like that's one I think I could do. That would be cute and like might be justifiable to like make. So that's something I'd like to do. And then let's see here. I love sculpting. Want to make a mold though. Haven't tried that yet. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Like sculpting's fun. Like I played with that a long ago. I feel like in a galaxy far away, kind of long ago. But I've never made like a resin cast. And I honestly feel like I've watched YouTube videos of people making resin casts, and it doesn't look like crazy complicated. Not that it's not hard. I'm sure it's hard, but it just doesn't look like something that I couldn't figure out if I spent the time, With accessories would be amazing. Like maybe he has a little Indiana Jones hat or something. Anyhow, I don't know. It's funny, like one of my favorite things about creativity is that like dreaming point where, you can kind of start thinking about things that are possible. And why rule out action figures, even if you're doing like autobio stuff, Why not have like a little toy or something? Okay, so we're going to have that. This is very rough, but just working out this last panel. I also don't design this with full bleed pages. And that is specifically this book. I don't know why, but I've kind of avoided using any full bleed pages. Not that that's a bad thing to have full bleed pages, but I just, for the design of it, it just made more sense to have none of the pages go full bleed. Okay. Voila. All right, and I'm gonna erase this guy, this part. And I think we finished a page, you guys. You guys kept me sane and powered through. And it is now like 3:30 in the morning, and I have a crew of people who have been a lot of fun to hang out with. And I've learned all kinds of great things about each of you, and it's been really cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me for this stream. If you haven't yet, I think it sounds like most people in the chats have, but if you haven't yet, make sure to pick up a copy of Two Stories, Book 1, the graphic novel. If you haven't picked it up, pick it up at Amazon.com. And if you have picked it up and you enjoyed the book, try to leave a review. That helps sell it. And Adam, it was awesome having you on. It's great to see you back online, and kind of can't wait to see all the cool stuff you do. Yeah. And then thanks. I should mention that podcast appearance. So that worked as a nice prompt, Adam. But so there's a show called Comic Book Club that I will be on, and you can see whether my worst fears come true and I completely bomb, or whether I do well. And that should be live on their YouTube. You can just look up Comic Book Club on Twitter or YouTube, and you'll find it. And you can see, like, at 4:00 Pacific time, whether I completely eat it or whether I do okay in pitching my book. Other than that, thanks Mama Soto, thanks Jake, thanks to like everybody, Frank, like Chris Kawagua, and just basically everybody who stopped by and kind of hung out and kept me company late and early into the mornings. I really appreciate it. I hope it's useful for you guys and you're getting creative work done. And I will probably see you later tonight. So thanks again, and have a good morning or night. All right. Bye.